Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Human Factor Security Podcast with me, your host, Jenny Radcliffe, the People Hacker. So I'm so delighted, so chuffed, made up, because my guest this week is one of the few people I have ever in my life actually called boss and meant it, and a good friend. Welcome to the show, Peter Bleksley.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for agreeing to come on. How are you? How's lockdown 3 the revenge treating you?
Yeah, no, I'm really well, to be honest with you. I have an awful lot to be thankful for, because if we rewind to lockdown of March last year, I was way behind with a book.
Right.
So those first 11, 12 weeks enabled me to get my head down and get the book done, as well as hunting Kevin Parle, of course, at the same time. My writing was interspersed with doing inquiries, open source, following up, engaging with people, and all of that. So I was largely unaffected, to be perfectly frank, apart from the fact that I couldn't go to the pub.
Wow.
And then subsequent to that, with the other lockdowns, because we live in the age of the digital detective or the desktop detective, whatever your preferred title is, I sit here in this box bedroom office of ours, and I work morning, noon, and night on my hunt for Kevin Parle. So it's very, very frustrating that I can't knock on doors and get in front of people, because I have a list of people that I need to see, which is as long as your arm. And some of those people will not be very happy to see me, let me tell you that. But so that's frustrating. I mean, that's really frustrating. And I have to say that I think if it hadn't been for this wretched virus, Kevin Parle would probably be in handcuffs by now.
Really?
So be it. It's worked to his advantage. So be it. He has all the advantages. He doesn't have to obey the law. He has scant disregard for any form of authority or establishment. And I think coronavirus has very much played into his hands. But so be it. It will just make his capture all the more satisfying when that happens.
I mean, I know something about this case because it's from Liverpool and because obviously we're friends, and I wondered, I know that before coronavirus hit that you were in the city and you were doing sort of some interviews and things and just trying to like find out what was going on and what people's memory of that was and what their opinion of that case was now. So maybe, I mean, I know that you picked it because of the two victims that we're talking about. But do you want to just give us a quick overview and then tell us what you found people in Liverpool?
Yeah, you see, I've got to apologise now, haven't I? Because I've gone off spouting off about my hunt for Kevin Parle, and some of your viewers and listeners will be going, hang on, I haven't heard of that name before, which is partly why I'm here, largely why I'm here, to spread the word. Right. So when I left Hunted, that TV show on Channel 4, where we met, in February 2019, I announced that I was leaving. It was like, right, what's my next major project going to be? Publisher said, yeah, you can write another book. And instead of writing about unsolved murders, which my previous couple of books have been, I thought, well, I'm best known for hunting pretend fugitives. Think of my skills, lifetime investigator, let's hunt a real one. And they don't come any more wanted than 6'6" Liverpudlian Kevin Parle, who's now 40 years old. So I announced the start of my hunt for him at a press conference in London on the 29th of April, 2019. So 21 months ago. That night on a train with my great friend and podcast editor, Mark Sandell, into Lime Street, straight to the barrier, handing out flyers, just generating public interest, raising the awareness of Parle. And that night, it had been a very long day, dumped our bags in the hotel, went to the nearest pub, got permission from the governor to hand out flyers, and people in the pub were very engaged with us, but they were saying, Kevin who? Never heard of him.
Yeah.
Which has been part of my reason for hunting him and my motivation, because this man is unconvicted, yes, but very much wanted in connection with two murders that both took place in Liverpool. The shooting of a 16-year-old boy, Liam Kelly, a kid, a child, in Grafton Street in a dingle in 2004.
Yeah.
And then the shooting dead of Lucy Hargreaves, a 22-year-old mother of 3 young children, who people have told me was as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. And I make no apology for those that are listening and not watching, but I'm just holding up a flyer with pictures of Liam and Lucy on them. And after Lucy had been shot, her home was set on fire. I mean, just ghastly crimes, the pair of them. Parle should be a household name. Kevin Parle, P-A-R-L-E. Don't forget, please, ladies and gentlemen. He should be a household name. He's lived a life of Riley for the last 16 years while he's been on the run. And it is my life's mission to change all that and see him in handcuffs.
I mean, to people, when you brought this up, you say that people don't remember the name, but I know that, and you've spoken in the past, and I've heard you speak about this and say that, you know, people in Liverpool were outraged at the fact that, like, you know, I mean, all right, you know, Liam was maybe a bit of a scallywag or whatever, but they were outraged at the fact that this was people got away with it and seemed to have got away with this, and that it was deemed to be out of order, wasn't it? It was deemed not to be part of the normal kind of criminal backwards and forwards. It was steps too far, especially with Lucy, I guess. Both of them, but like Lucy was just, I mean, I think she was asleep, wasn't she?
Yeah. I mean, my eldest son, who's now 33, went to university in Liverpool, right? So I thought I knew Liverpool by virtue of the trips that I would take to go up there and see him.
Yeah.
In the last 21 months, I had been to Liverpool on numerous occasions, including 2 trips last December when restrictions were lifted a little bit and we could. You know, I've been there countless times. And so I've actually got a fairly good insight into the city and its people. I've got an essence of that, what it means to be a Scouser, a Liverpudlian. I've really kind of got that, and I've loved it. And I am deeply, deeply in love with Liverpool and its people. I'm missing it dreadfully. I can't wait to get back. And as soon as we possibly can, I will be on a train that pulls into Merseyside. And of course, there's a great song called Does This Train Stop on Merseyside by Ian Prowse, right? You've got to check it out. I only learnt about it through our podcast producer who wove it into one of the podcast episodes. And anyway, right. So I've got it. And yes, you're right. Liam was not described to me by anybody as being a model student.
No.
Okay. And he was bit of an irritant to some people, but he was 16 and I wasn't a model student. I was an irritant to a load of people when I was 16. You know, he was a kid blasted to death with a shotgun. You know, come on, that is a truly, truly outrageous crime. But you're right when you say it may have gone a bit under the radar, so to speak, because 3 people were convicted in connection with Liam's murder, but the court was told Parle pulled the trigger, and Parle is still on the run for that. So he's very much wanted for that crime, albeit, no apologies for repeating that, he's not convicted, but he's got to stand in a court and answer the allegation. Lucy's murder, crossed the line for many, many people, because she was a beautiful young woman, dedicated mother of 3 young children, the youngest of whom was only 2. And that murder enraged an awful lot of people, a lot of people. And consequently, I think why there has been a willingness on the part of many people to talk to me, because so many Liverpudlians have told me, you know, you're born and raised in this city that we do not grass.
No.
Okay, you don't grass, you don't talk to the establishment. End of story. But when it comes to Lucy's murder, it crossed the line, and I think that is part of the reason why so many courageous people have and continue to come forward and speak to me.
Yeah, and I mean, it is an act of courage even all these years later to do it, because obviously, I mean, he isn't behind bars. Nobody know. Well, people didn't know it was the police. I mean, did the police? I mean, I know there's some things that I know you can say, some things that you wouldn't say on this. But did the police? Is this a cold case for them? Is it just you know? Did you have to resurrect it all within the police, or how did that work?
I'm very fortunate in that many people come forward and talk to me. I'm lucky on that front. They you know, they get to hear about me and they think, you know what, I can talk to him, I can trust him, and people can, because I will never ever declare my sources. And it continues to this day. People still come forward, which is wonderful, and I encourage that, and I'm extremely grateful. it might not surprise you to know, and I'll put it this way, that I have sources, shall we say, with some in-depth knowledge of the workings of Merseyside police. Right now, Merseyside police might not be overly fussed about that, but I've got a relationship with Merseyside police. I've always made them aware of my intentions, and I'm now dealing with a new detective chief inspector since the end of last year, because the previous one no longer has responsibility for the murders of Leo and Lucy, and consequently the finding of Kevin Parle. And the early signs are encouraging in regards to my relationship with them. So, well, let's hope that I don't get disappointed. If Merseyside police are as determined and committed to finding Kevin Parle as I am, then his time on the run is going to be severely limited, and he will be captured. Let's just hope they are. Anyway, early signs encouraging. What I say, sorry, get back to the original point. For years and years and years, the information that went into Merseyside police said Kevin Parle is dead. Now, I know who started that rumour, and fair play to them, right? It was a deliberate tactic, of course, because if you're wanted in connection with two murders, that's exactly what you want people to think. It will demotivate people. And Merseyside police had information to that effect going into them for years. I also happen to know that in 2018, around about August of 2018, they received information that said he was very... And when I found out what that information was, a lot of it was entirely corroborated by what I've been told. So there you go. If we fast forward now to February 2021, Merseyside police know that I know what they know. And I gave them a 90-minute presentation in December, which ran to 120 PowerPoint slides and more. So let's hope we've all got shared aims and goals, and we shrink the world for Kevin Parle together.
Well, obviously these are terrible cases. And I mean, this piece is books there. Where can I go so it doesn't display? There we go. So we are going to put links to Manhunt and to all pieces, kind of, lots of things about Manhunt, podcasts and leaflets and things and information, and particularly how you can get in touch with Peter if you have information on this or you want to talk about this. And I do know I have a lot of fellow Scousers that listen to this who might know something. It's a good cause. I mean that family, to maybe give the family some peace after all this time.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, okay, it is quite overwhelming what has happened during this hunt, during the 21 months. Literally thousands of people are helping. Okay, thousands. They have come on board to help in whatever way that is, and that might be by recommending our podcast, which has been downloaded over 3 million times, right? Our BBC podcast.
Yeah, we'll put links and stamp shops here. Yeah, we'll put links so people can find it.
It's by recommending that to someone, or it's by buying the book and lending it to someone, giving it away to someone. Don't let my publisher hear me say this, right? If you do, read it and give it to someone. Spread the word, raise awareness. This week, I've posted off packages of flyers to people, right? Like Kevin Parle flyers that people are going to hand out and post around. And only this week, reaching out to different Facebook groups, as I do, I reached out to one on the Costa Blanca in Spain. Now, a fairly small Facebook group. Yeah. Well, of course, I went to Spain last year, and 2 episodes of the podcast and the book, it's kind of like, it's all in there. We had a very, very interesting exchange with 2 young men outside a cannabis club in a town called Albia, just outside of Benidorm. Anyway, so by way of connecting with people, because I know that Parle has been to Ireland, Thailand, Dubai, and Spain while he's been on the run, I'm reaching out to Facebook groups around the world. I contact the administrator, ask if I can make a post on their, all with the intention of raising awareness and encouraging people to help or get in touch if they know something. I posted one this week on a fairly small Facebook group, 11,000 members in the south of the Costa Blanca. And the administrator got hold of me and said, it's just gone live, your post. Within a minute, it's been shared 60 times.
Wow.
Well, in less than 24 hours, that posting had been shared 1,200 times and had been seen by over 75,000 people. Just from one posting. Right?
So it's striking a nerve then. Something's triggering recognition and not just the case.
Yeah, absolutely. People are coming on board. And this really is, and I'm going to announce this publicly next week. I mean, I kind of am here, but I will be I am going to announce that I'm no longer calling it My Hunt for Kevin Parle or Manhunt, because essentially this has become the people's hunt. It is now the people's hunt for Kevin Parle.
I mean, you've sort of crowdsourced an investigation in a way. I mean, for me, this is one of the most interesting things about it. I mean, I was interested because it was Liverpool. I was interested because it was you, but it's also what you've said there is really true. You've crowdsourced an investigation, probably one of the most prominent, maybe one of the biggest kind of, and a new way of doing it, a new way of just using anyone who's interested sort of mind and contacts and communication methods to try and get this result. I mean, that's quite a revolutionary way of doing it, I think.
Thank you. That's a great kind of way of looking at it. I've written that down. I'm going to unashamedly rip that phrase from you, honey, and I'll be weaving it into any kind of future conversation. But yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it. Yeah. That in essence is what I'm doing and will continue to do with the public's help. And when we talk about crowdsourcing, you might think that would most usually be aligned to raising money, for example. Well, many members of the public have said to me, Peter, do you want to set up a GoFundMe or something like that to fund your hunt for Kevin Parle? Well, at the moment, I don't need to, because I'm sat in my office most days. And I would really like to try and manage that without public funding. But another suggestion has been, and this rings loudly in my ears all the time, people have said, why don't you crowdsource a reward fund, a reward pot, to offer that up for information leading to his capture? Well, the police have got a reward on offer, which is £20,000, and that's still there. But the police's reward is for information that leads to his capture and his conviction.
Okay.
Now, I've argued long and hard with Merseyside Police that whole conviction kind of condition applied to that reward is a nonsense. Because what if a public spirited person came forward and contacted Crime Stoppers, Merseyside Police, or me and said, Peter, he is now at this moment in number 123 Acacia Avenue. Yeah, right? Yeah. And that house gets surrounded, Parle gets captured, for example, yeah, but then goes to court and doesn't get convicted of either crime. Okay, just imagine if that hypothetical situation arose, then that would mean, according to the police's conditions applying to their reward, that person who made the phone call wouldn't get that 20 grand. Now, that has to be manifestly unfair, because how does that person have any kind of control over the police investigation, which could have a flaw and lead to the case collapsing, the Crown Prosecution Service's prosecution of the case, which could be flawed and lead to the case collapsing, a perverse verdict from a jury that could happen, a misdirection from a judge, which could happen, a jury getting nobbled, which could happen, and loads of other things. Yeah. So that's really, really unfair.
It's counterproductive to do it that way, I suppose, is what you're saying. Yeah.
So the wonderful members of the public that are saying, set up a reward fund just for his capture, for information just leading to his capture. I'm hyper aware to that, and I think about it an awful lot. I'm not doing it at the moment because, I wasn't going to do it in the run up to Christmas. People are strapped for cash. Millions of people are unemployed, furloughed, and the country's economy is catastrophic at the moment. So I don't think the time is right. I think it would be inappropriate. But I am thinking of it.
But it's
and I might,
there as an option for the future, isn't it? When everything starts getting a bit more back to normal,
yeah.
you know. It's well, it's a very obviously it's a very it's a topic that you're very passionate about, and I mean you always are when we get onto these things. The book is out there, the podcast out there. We'll put links to all of these things, and specifically how you can get in touch with Peter directly if you need to, and help maybe solve these cases and give those families of those two people some
Paul, it's
closure.
my life. You know, it's my life's mission. I've said that publicly on a number of occasions, and there are only two things that will stop me hunting Kevin Parle. Number one, obviously, is his capture, and number two is my death. It's as simple as that. I shall never stop.
There's the links. This is the book. And you know, go and get it. And it does explain in a piece of, you know, because obviously this is this your, I think I've got it down as your fifth book, but there's plays and things. Is that right? Is it your fifth
Yeah,
book?
it's my fourth book, and I've written 3 plays for BBC Radio 4. Yeah.
So here's the thing. When I was looking at, you know, interviewing you, and it's difficult because we could just chat. And I was like, no, I've got, you know, obviously we want to get, you know, everything about Manhunt and this your mission at the moment. We want to talk about that. But then I was like, okay, I'll look at some other things for Peter because, you know, I'm going to interview you and everything. And you forget when you know someone how much you've done, and how, like, you've been interviewed everywhere. It was like it was on Breakfast Telly, and it was on Jeremy Kyle, and you've been on
Jeremy Vine, thank you,
Vine.
not Jeremy
Vine. I
Kyle.
meant Vine. I always get that wrong.
Yeah.
Jeremy Vine, and it's like, oh god, and you've also been like script advisor for TV shows and everything. This is all apart from Hunters, which we will chat a little bit about just later, as far as we can. I mean, what makes you pick a project?
Well, basically, needs must. I mean, when I was medically retired from the old bill 20 years ago, I was on the scrap heap of life. You know, I was 39, 40 years old, no education to fall back on because I foolishly flunked that and left school at 16. No apprenticeship, no trade, no craft, nothing. And so, having spent over 10 years working undercover in the old bill, I thought I had a story to tell, coupled with the fact that I felt I'd been dealt with fairly shabbily through my catastrophic mental health breakdown and my subsequent medical retirement from the old bill. So I thought, you know what? I've got a story to tell. I'll write a book. I got a publishing deal. I was very grateful for that. I had help with writing my first book only. I've done, you know, all the writing myself thereafter. And it did all right. And it put me into the public domain all of a sudden. I'd gone from living a very secretive life in witness protection, no less, to all of a sudden I'm on the radio and I'm on the telly talking about crime and policing. So
and this was Gangbuster, right? That was
the Gangbuster. Yeah, stand by. I think I've got a copy somewhere. Oh no, maybe I haven't. Anyway,
it's all right. We'll flash it. We'll flash them up.
Yeah.
We'll take screenshots and flash them up. But like,
I mean, 20 years ago, and it's still selling. It still does a trickle of sales.
Well, it's quite the yarn, Peter. I mean, come on.
It is. Yeah. It was a crazy, crazy time in my life, and it is a boy's own tale, which women can enjoy as well. But I mean,
But like you said, I always think when I read that, you must have. It's almost like it's sort of two halves, really. So I read that and I think it must have been easy to think, well, that's the exciting part of my life. And now, you know, go and do something ordinary. And like you say, to come out of that and start to, you know, to write more and you know, and then to take hold of that whole process. I mean, it doesn't surprise me knowing you. What you need to understand if you work or know Peter for any length of time is you have this elegance of phrasing, which is, I think, is why on Hunter particularly, that, you know, you became the face of it and everyone identified you with it. Because if I remember, if there was a little moments that needed something saying, you'd be so good at getting like a little sound bite that they'd just be so happy to just put it was just perfect for the moment. So it doesn't surprise me. But that second career, I mean, does it, you know, I mean, I've written here, you know, did you ever look back and think, I never expected to go from doing all that undercover work, sort of being retired from it and finishing it, and then having this like second half of equally kind of, well, not equally, I mean, nothing's going to ever really come up to some of the things that happen, but, you know, compelling career.
Not for a moment. As I say, when I got medically retired, I didn't know what on earth I was going to do. When I was in the job, when I was in the police, I thought I'll do me 30 years,
Yeah.
retire at maybe, 49, 50, 30 years, public service pension, thank you very much. And I'll go and play golf, like so many of them do. I am so happy that that didn't happen.
That would never, you'd never have been happy not pursuing something. You have to have I think you've always had to have something that you've always got something in your sights that you pursue relentlessly. And I think that was the thing that I really noticed on the show as well, was that like it's very easy. I mean, we're going to talk a bit about hunters, I guess, but like it's very easy. It can be very slow sometimes, and then it's very intense. And I remember just days when we got information in on these fugitives, this fugitive, and what you did was you pushed us all to focus, right? We're going to do this today. Like, we want to focus on this one and do it. I think that's something that really comes through, so I think you've always got to have a focus. You're good at narrowing a focus down and I think angling energy towards it is what
you can spread yourself too thinly, and your resources, of course. So often when we're on hunting, I would go, right, okay, kill a fugitive because it's got the best strand of information, the most credible intelligence. Our resources can be deployed fairly swiftly. Let's focus on that, because when we've chalked one off, we can then reassess and redirect. If you start throwing yourself around in some kind of haphazard fashion, I think that's a poor management in terms of utilizing your resources. Have a focus. If you spread yourself too thinly, you're probably not going to achieve your objectives. And I think there's a lot to be said for really having a focus, setting an objective, achieving that, and then moving on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I get asked all the time about it, and I mean, I'm not asked that much about it because I didn't shout about it that much really, but was, what do you think would make a good fugitive? And obviously there's a lot of answers to that, but I think the reason I'm asked it is because that's what makes it compelling. I think I think everyone thinks that they could give us a run for the money. Do you think that's what makes it so compelling?
It's a people show, isn't it? That's what it is. People buy into the characters, whether it's the hunters that they've got an affinity for, or more likely a particular fugitive that they're rooting for to try and win. I hoped way back in the early days on the first series that it would focus on the investigations, and you would see some of the brilliance that goes on in regards to the investigations. Unfortunately, you see very little of that. Yeah, very, very little. And in fact, hardly anything, to be perfectly frank. And that's a bit frustrating, I know, because all the team in HQ kind of shared that frustration that how we join the dots doesn't make it to screen. But hey, it's an entertainment show. No, it's so you've just got to deal with that, accept it, and get on with it.
I struggled with that. I remember just there was times because you're so focused on the investigation. I know obviously we can only talk around this, obviously, and we wouldn't ruin the magic of it for people, because it is brilliant as a viewer. I was a fan before I was on it, but yeah, I remember being reminded of that by yourself and by others. Just put Jen, it's a TV show, sometimes that's it. But what got me about that was. And you've experienced both of these things obviously much more than me, and before I did, but I was surprised one at the fans and the level of fandom that it still gets, and that you get. I mean, if you go for a drink, Peter, I remember being for a drink. I don't know where it was. It was, and just you sort of go. I felt like at the back something burning at the back of my head as Peter go, it's cheap. So one is the fans and how invested they are in the outcomes and how annoyed they were when we caught them all. Just saying.
Yeah. Simply one of the greatest working days of my life. That day was okay, absolutely brilliant. And and I know, but again, it didn't make it to screen. That set of circumstances were the culmination of about 3 or 4 days of quite brilliant, relentless investigative work as we joined the
waving
dots,
to all the team. Mate to all the hunters, team hunters, forever.
You know, as we asked questions, as we made the right decisions, as we kind of assessed everything as it came in very, very quick succession, rapidly moving investigation. It was brilliant investigation work, none of which made it to the screen, but that's fine. And I'm now going to embarrass you because this is fine. We can talk about this. What happened on that Sunday, the last day of filming, in the morning, was we pretty much identified that helicopter was going to be the mode of transport. We'd identified that it was going to be Birmingham.
Yes.
So we started off by identifying in very quick time. Everybody's got their foot to the floor here. We started off with where could a helicopter land in sort of greater Birmingham, suburban Birmingham, if you would. And as we deployed units there, and we were able to say, no, there's no helicopter traffic here. No, there's no helicopter traffic there for booked in for today, etc., etc. We were able to narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down, all in very, very quick time, to eventually I went, right, it's the city centre. And I went to you and I said, Jen, you find me somewhere where a helicopter can land in Birmingham city centre, like now, please. You got straight on it. And it was a result of your work that identified the fact that helicopters could land. I think you pulled up 3 locations or something. Yeah. You were an absolutely vital cog in the wheel that without your input, your brilliance, the way you engaged with people on the phone that morning and got them to tell us stuff which I think only, you know, a blagger like you could do. Now, we weren't blagging. We were asking, you know, we weren't breaking the rules or anything like that. We were asking, you asked the right questions of the right people and you engaged with them. And that's where we ended up going, right, it's one of 3 places. And then, of course, the ground hunter, by doing some great stuff on the ground, went, actually, boom, it's there.
Oh, well, thank you.
You were a massive, massive part.
I remember saying to you, that, you know, they can land opposite Selfridge's roof.
Yeah.
And you go, and that's it. And you went, that's it. I know that's it, because they'd love to put 2 fingers up to us for themselves. And then the whole team just kicked in and pulled it together. But even just looking up for this, and thank you for that. It's very nice of you to say that. I mean, obviously it's not something that we really point out very often, what goes on behind the scenes, but what they didn't show, which is fine because it's, you know, but it really was a superb day, and all of the hunters celebrated a lot that night.
It was a great night, that's for sure. Yeehaw!
Do you remember the brush, clean sweep?
Yeah. I sent the young lady out from the production team to go and buy me a broom, and I'll just tell the people while we're here. So everyone's been captured. We've all been hooping and hollering. We have to wait a little while because some pickups have got to be filmed. You know, there's other bits to be done, and hunters have got to return to London and all that. So there's a bit of hanging around in operational HQ. I will add that at that point, when kind of like filming was done, I had a little reach into my bottom drawer. And I might have just had a litre bottle of Jack Daniels.
A litre bottle of Jack Daniels.
And then had a little pop over to the supermarket over the road, got some Coke and some ice, and we sneakily...
Oh, that was a good day. You're making me really nostalgic for everyone. It was a lovely day, that. It was brilliant.
So by the time all the other hunters got back from their travels in Birmingham and elsewhere, we'd all had 2 or 3 JD and Cokes and were properly warmed up and ready for the night. But yeah, I sent one of the lovely... young members of the production team down to a hardware store or something to buy a broom, cost only a couple of quid. And then I spent most of the afternoon going around operational HQ, sweeping this broom, and the TV execs are going, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm going, I'm just having a clean sweep, thank you.
You did. And I just remembered it like every now and then. So then everyone would go and have a drink, and, you know, and everyone would be having a drink and celebrating. It was so great. You know, and I know I've probably no right to do this, but sometimes when I see people saying that it was a fix or whatever, it does it makes me quite angry, because I know you can't help but see that if you don't see everything that goes on. But it was such hard work from everyone, and that team pulls together and does things so well. I was actually fairly, not offended, but I felt very defensive towards the Hunters and to Team Hunter, which I'll always be till I die, Team Hunter. But then what it'd be is like, let's have a drink, and then turn around and like, where's the boss? Oh, he's over there again. And you'd be whistling, going, clean sweep. And they didn't show all that. But yeah, it was, I was so glad. I was only ever on one series, and people sometimes said, if they'd have asked you back, would you have gone on again? I was like, no, I wouldn't, because why would I go back after we caught everyone? Professionally, for me, that was the best it could have turned out. Yeah. And then, of course, you left, and then I saw loads of interviews that you gave in all kinds of news outlets and all over the place, where all they kept saying was, would you be a fugitive? Would you be a fugitive? You said yes.
Yeah, they'd never catch me.
So I
doubt they'd ask me, but if they did ask me, they'd never catch me. I'd give them merry hell. Even with my relative lack of tech expertise, just picture the scene when they fire up that central hub in HQ one day and they're expecting a briefing from ground hunters, wheresoever they might be in the UK, and I've hacked it and my face pops up like a James Bond movie.
The thing is, you'd have well, I'd help.
Yeah, we give them merry
I'd help, yeah. So it'd be great. I'd love that. Anyway, shout out to all our hunted collies. Hi, guys. So no, I mean, it was great. And you know what, the thing for me, and one of I was a fan anyway. I liked the show and I liked the concept, but for me, what people should take away from it, as well as entertainment, is it is an education piece on what you put online, on the surveillance culture that we have in the UK and those types of things. And I think in some ways it does serve as to educate people, and that bit sort of ties in with what I do. And and that's when I'm asked about it. Sometimes at conferences and things, if I'm doing a talk, they'll ask about that, and they'll say, do you have access to this? Do you have access to that? And I say, what you've got to imagine as an individual, you've not done anything wrong. You're not a fugitive, but yeah, this is, be careful what you put out there, because we join the dots, and you need to, sometimes you need our wonderful cyber guys, and then we needed, our analysts and our intelligence gatherers and stuff like that. And then sometimes you just need a non-technical brain piece just to put it all together. Eh?
Yes, indeed.
You and me. I would class myself as non-technical. Well, do you know what? It's absolutely lovely talking to you. I don't even... I mean, what I'm looking forward to, Human Factor Security podcast goes out on a Friday, which means that we will probably see Peter tonight on Instagram doing dad dancing for lockdown in your kitchen. Oh my eyes. I can't unsee it.
You want to see tonight's one? Oh, sorry, you won't see tonight's one. But anyway, I can't give any secrets away.
I just wondered, do you actually have the outfits in the wardrobe? I think you have John Travolta one.
Oh, I'm spending a small fortune here, because every week I've got to think, right, what's this week's theme going to be? That blooming John Travolta suit last week cost me 23 to dance around. Well, dancing in inverted commas, but I'm only doing it during lockdown, obviously, and it's just the joke's on me. But some people find it funny, and we've got to try and put a smile on our faces, haven't we?
We have. Do you know, I got an award this week. And it was about sort of cyber experts during COVID, and they asked me for the quote. And one of the things I do on Twitter is I put a Groundhog Day photograph every single morning. And I thought, God, obviously, I mean, you give interviews and things, and I thought, they mustn't mean that. They obviously mean all the interviews about the COVID scams and everything. But then I thought to myself, I've had so many people literally DM me, email me, get in touch with me some way and go, we love this, because it's just a consistent smile every morning. And it's really contributed to just something, I don't know, people just latched onto it and just enjoy it, even if it's only a few people and even if it's only once. And I think there's real value in just a little bit of madness sometimes, just to get us through this crazy periods of time. So,
well, seeing as, of course, this won't be going out this evening, Jen, right?
Right.
By the time it goes out, some people may have had the huge misfortune to have seen this evening's offering. let me just show you a little prop that arrived yesterday.
Oh my God.
A can of red hairspray. Yeah.
Well, listen.
There you go.
Peter, seriously, I was serious like that. You know, I'm basically, I don't have bosses. I haven't reported to anyone for years, but I did enjoy so much with me. I learned so much from you on the show, and so much since the show. And I just, you know, I really appreciate you coming on this podcast and talking to us about it. And obviously we'll put it out there. And the thing is, like, a lot of my audience, the security community, the cybers. So, you know, any help that we can give Peter, you know, there's all the details are going to be flashed up again. And the last thing I'm going to say just before I say goodbye is that I think I'll be lucky if you don't tell me off, because I was thinking the other during lockdown that I had a case of writer's block, which I know you've got absolutely no time for whatsoever. I'm unblocked now, I promise.
Don't talk to me about writer's block, okay? It is a nonsense, self-indulgent concept dreamed up by people who have either got too much money in the bank so they can indulge themselves. I've got writer's block, or they're just bloody lazy. No such thing. Get on with it. And before people jump on my back, right, because a few fluffy writer types did this week, not that I give a monkeys, they said, well, it's very different with creative writing. You know, you write books in a first-person narrative that come from memory. Well, I'm a creative writer. Yeah, right. I've written 3 plays for Radio 4, right? Okay, where I dream up plot, story, structure, character, dialogue. And I've done that for numerous TV dramas as well when I've been a consultant. So don't talk to me about the struggles of creativity. Get on with it. Cover the pages. Don't be bone idle. There's thinking time, which might be a bit different. You know, when I'm writing, I go downstairs every hour, right? Number one, because I need to just go up and down the stairs to get my legs moving, right? And number 2, because I want a coffee and a fag. Don't smoke, ladies and gentlemen. Dirty, smelly, expensive, antisocial, and life-shortening. But I'm a fool, and I do like a fag and a cup of coffee. I do that every year. And while I'm having that fag and that coffee, right, just quietly contemplating to myself, I do get the ideas. They come in, and I go, right, oh, yeah, right. Let's scribble that in my notebook, because by the time I get back upstairs, I'll have forgotten it. Scribble it in my notebook, and I go, right, yeah, boom, that's the idea. That's where I'm going to take the next chapter, or that's going to be the next thing I'm going to mention. And likewise with my investigation, I've always got my pen and my notebook down.
You're such a cop. I've never known you not be able to just pull from somewhere. I've seen just in the shirt and trousers. I don't know where the hell you get them from. Suddenly there's a notebook and a pen. What was that? Say that again. And you're just like, oh, that just reminds me so much of various past.
Yeah, so that's the thing. And the other thing, of course, which I always kind of think about you, not necessarily applicable to me, is but hack the person, not the system. You know, and I love that phrase, and I use it, and you know, I do rip your phrases and use them to other people, because I think they're very helpful and very useful.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks so much for coming on the show. It's such a pleasure to talk to you again. You know, I do watch the Dad Dancing every Friday and stay in touch with most of the hunters, because it was an interesting time in my life, and it introduced me to people like yourself. I just remember that coffee and fag moment, going for a burn, which I'd never even heard. That must be a London thing for you and all the Cockneys on that boiling hot roof that summer, and just that last day. So no, I appreciate so thank you for everything that you gave me then. Thanks for the book and coming on the show.
Just while we talk about the show, before we kind of wrap it up, you know, Hunted is a great show with some wonderful people on it, and I was so happy to be a part of it. For you know, 4 series of the main, 2 celebs. I hope the show goes on and on and on, enjoys even more success, because it entertains so many people, and there are some quite frankly brilliant people involved in it.
There are. It was a lovely time in my life, and it was great.
But I'm not find me.
Thing is, but we caught them. So whenever someone said, I just go, oh, what do you mean? That series where we caught everyone? That'll be the one I was on. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for being on the show. We will put all the details of how you can catch up with Peter. You can follow everything that he's doing. If you switch on the TV soon, I think this TV show in the next couple of weeks, I keep seeing like your face coming up on the TV and on the radio. So we'll put all those things. But the main reason that Peter does this is to try and meet the aims of this. So let's do that. Thank you so much for being on the show, Peter Bleksley.
My pleasure. Thanks.